People would have thought that by now in May, every single brand would have been on 50 to 70% off online.
I remember the days when, 10% used to be a good deal, and now no one bats an eyelid unless it's at least 30.
You're not necessarily going to be able to get all of your SLAs met.
One of the fastest marketplaces right now. They're covering 46 different countries.
It does lead to a more sort of philosophical question about the longevity of the brand.
So difficult to plan, so difficult to forecast.
If you're a business that needs cash, then you need to do what you need to do.
Just to get an idea of how things have been going recently, what categories have been selling well and less well since lockdown began?
We're up 100% year on year in both the last 2 months since the lockdown started. The main categories which have seen enormous growth have been homeware and beauty. It's homeware across all categories. People are wanting new bedding, new mattresses, massive growth in garden products. Garden furniture and outdoor lighting has been absolutely enormous. The only area which has seen slight slowdown is cheaper accessories, but every other area, including designer fashion, is up massively. The reason we're growing so fast is we're being offered amazing stock that we don't often get. Because of all these issues that are happening around the world. So we're getting offered much better stock, and when you're offered amazing stock and you're selling it at a reasonable price, it just flies. And so we happen to be very fortunate to be in the right space at the moment.
Moving to Joe, what you're doing now is going into sale.
Looking back on historical data in terms of where our most successful online trading ever happened, it was always during the sale period. And I was sat looking at a shop full of stock that was seasonal and that was going to go nowhere unless I did something pretty courageous. So we went straight into a 40% discount to clear the stock, to generate cash. I remember the days when 10% used to be a good deal, and now no one bats an eyelid unless it's at least 30. When we reopen, we can open with a fresh seasonal look. We've taken a hit on margin, but I'm looking at the last 2 months as being an acquisition exercise. We've worked so hard in terms of driving relationships, mainly through Instagram. We've got a whole host of new people who have fallen in love with what we do. I've been pushed firmly out of my comfort zone and been doing Instagram TV.
Claire, you did a promotion that's 40% for NHS workers.
We're a small business and we sell shoes, so all we could do really was offer a discount on the shoes to say thank you, and that was the reason, the driver behind it. It wasn't necessarily kind of discounting to sell stock, it was actually doing it from a perspective of wanting to give back to the NHS. We were just completely overwhelmed by the response. There were many more orders that didn't get processed, but we had to basically process every single one of those orders and check the ID and deal with every query ourselves with a small team. So it was a lot of work. It took days, and we're following on from it as well. The messages that we got were just absolutely lovely and really supportive back. So it was a really worthwhile exercise.
So Bunty, do you think premium brands can get away with doing discounting that they would have been hesitant to do before?
It depends on the business, and it depends on what your motivation is, because let's face it, if you're a business that needs cash, then you need to do what you need to do. The important thing is that you perhaps reward loyalty and referral, and I would probably always go to my loyal customers first and see what they could do, reward those guys for staying engaged with the business and see if they can actually be your ambassadors, and finding discreet partners who can help you with perhaps some of the stock that, let's face it, you might have to be a little bit more aggressive on, and that's where somewhere like DONNELLY comes in, because it's a limited time period to a specific membership base in a closed network, and that's great for acquisition as well and brand awareness. So,
and Chris, what are your thoughts in terms of managing the brand value, its image, versus the need to discount?
If the business is in a bad shape, then I think it has to do what it has to do. If the business isn't in a bad shape, then it does lead to a more sort of philosophical question about the brand, the longevity of the brand. So obviously I think necessity rules. Most of our clients don't discount as a general rule of thumb. If they're going to do something like that, it's much more about added value. It's much more about, additional value they can offer the consumer. If you're going to discount and you have a very solidified brand and value in your brand from like a long-term perspective, then maybe it should be discounting on a small amount of products as opposed to across the business.
Rob, do you anticipate receiving more fashion stock over the next 6 months?
For sure. It's a very, very tough period for the fashion brands. The lockdown has ruined spring, summer, and it will probably have a really tough impact on autumn winter as well. We're anticipating being offered an enormous amount of stock across all the categories. Brands are in different positions. Sometimes they need to clear warehouses, sometimes they need cash flow, sometimes it's literally survival. There is going to be far more stock that comes our way and is heavily discounted on the high street.
Claire, can you just talk about terminal stock?
So terminal stock is basically stock that can no longer realistically be sold in any way that's going to not lose you money, but while it's sitting there in the warehouse, you're paying for storage, so it's a drain on your resource, so you kind of need to get rid of it and get it out of your business as quickly as possible.
What some brands are considering doing, keeping stock back for spring summer 21. What are your thoughts on that?
You have to sort of step back a bit, because COVID-19 pandemic isn't just about affecting sales, it's also going to affect supply chain. So the reality is that all of those designers that were in offices building new collections haven't been. All of those factories that have been in lockdown haven't been producing and developing. If you're a brand, step back and say, okay, well, realistically, what is transferable? I.e., the customer hasn't seen it, so we could hold on to it. Claire makes a very valid point. You know, if you've got a load of stock and it's gathering dust in the warehouse and it's costing you money, you need to think about whether you actually have the ability to hold on to it without actually it becoming a terminal situation. It could be an opportunity to also look at how you phase your business, revisit your entire supply chain and take a much more robust, agile, adaptable, flexible approach to it. It might very well be that there's some items in the collection that could be considered continuity. Perhaps the public haven't seen yet, so it is worth plugging the gaps for next year, but then also need to take a hard stance on product that you think, well, honestly speaking, it's not going anywhere. We need to liquidate that, and that will fund our ability to potentially pay for any stock that we do want to hold on to.
What about you, Rob? Do you have any opinions on discounting now versus holding on to stock until next season?
For some types of stock, if it's real continuity product, you can put it away for a year, but if it's high fashion, you just can't. It's much better to liquidate it as quickly as you can.
Another avenue that might be considered for excess stock is international customers. ARMINE, I know at World First you work with lots of marketplaces because you deal with currencies and rates for the marketplace, the buyers and the sellers. So do you have an idea on what are some of the good marketplaces internationally for fashion and accessory brands in particular?
High-end brands are going to be better off promoting their own website under their own brand and keeping everything kind of closed. If they're open to going on a marketplace where you become more of a kind of part of the white background catalogue, a really interesting marketplace, UK-based, is Frugo. They're one of the fastest marketplaces right now. They're covering 46 different countries, and they actually do the translation and currency conversion for you. If you're new to that channel, it's going to be a real quick and easy way to get up to speed. Another obvious one, again, depending how romantic the brand is about where they're seen, is Groupon, of course. The majority of different international marketplaces will only pay you in their own currency. So what World First does is help these brands, these companies, open up let's say a US-based bank account completely free in a much quicker way. And that way you can receive those US dollars you've generated straight into an account, and you've got full control of when you want to convert it. Again, nowhere near the 3 to 5% that is standard.
Rob, when the non-food shops open, people see all the sales stuff, then other e-commerce retailers will have to react to that. So how do you think you're set to compete in that climate?
It's really interesting, actually, this point, because there hasn't been as much discounting so far by the brands as you would expect. I don't think it's an absolute necessity that if a lot of these stores open on June the 1st, that they actually will go into massive discount immediately. If you go back a month, people would have thought that by now in May, every single brand would have been on 50 to 70% off online. Online players, though, they really do compete very well with the high street, because there are going to be a lot of issues, even when stores, if they do go on aggressive discount in the summer, the changing rooms may or may not be open. And I think people may just be much more comfortable staying at home. I think there has been a real fundamental shift towards online in fashion, and it was happening anyway, but at a sort of steady pace. But I think it may be that this pandemic has pushed it much quicker.
And how about you, Claire? How will you react to that with your own pricing and promotions?
We won't be joining in any deep discounting. Our factories have been closed for the last couple of months, so our stock levels are actually lower than where we would expect them to be. It's just not what we do as a brand. We've always kind of taken a slow fashion approach. Our products are very much designed to be seasonless. We always have a small sale in July, which we'll do, but probably will be very small.
You won't be joining in?
Not joining in deep discounting, no.
E-commerce retailers in particular, when they do discounting, it's like the database of new customers that they may have on board. So is there like a danger that there isn't a lifetime value that they would like to see in that customer?
Customers often that are captured through discount will have a sort of instinctive reaction, probably not to pay full price, and they have a very clear profile of who they are. I mean, that all being said, is not to say that if you capture consumers through discounting or value adding or whatever the sort of method that you do, you can't then convert them through good content and good brand story and narrative into becoming a consistent consumer. If you're discounting your entry level products, then you're going to definitely acquire a type of consumer that is expecting a discount, one, will expect one in the future, two, but also probably can't afford the median price of your products as well. So I think you just have to be careful how you strategically align your discounts.
The follow-ons from having more customers and more orders is the fulfilment. How much info do you need to know about what retailers are planning?
Anyone who's designing a solution to store and pick and pack products to meet consumer demands needs as much notice as possible. Any 3PL knows all of our clients are fighting for market share, and they have to respond to a competitive environment. So you are going to have some very, very last minute situations. Let's say that somebody has to go to a deep sale with 24 hours notice. You're not necessarily going to be able to get all of your SLAs met if your volume doubles. You can manage that. You should have a process for managing that and recovering that quite quickly. If you want to ensure that your SLAs are always met, then the supply chain people need to be plugged in with the marketing people and to know the marketing calendar.
Claire, you supply a lot of independent stockists. So what's the general feeling that you've been hearing from your partners?
I'd say it's been a really mixed bag. Kind of depends sort of case by case basis of how people have fared in the trading condition. We're being open and flexible, really, is the sort of the shortcut of it. We are going to be reaching out to all of our stockists who factories are closed at the moment still, so we don't really know when deliveries are going to be, but we'll be reaching out in advance to kind of speak to people and say what do they want to do and how can we help.
Joe, what about you from the other side as an independent yourself?
On brands that we have discounted, we've asked for support from those brands, not for the full level, but as a contribution. All bar one have been supportive of that and really supportive. So I would say my relationship with the brands that we work with, I've been completely honest. Claire and I had an honest conversation, didn't we, very early on about working together, because again, we are all in this together. We haven't cancelled an order. We've not amended orders. We're now placing reorders with brands. So our lockdown discounts stop when we're not locked down. We'll go into full price trading. So we've kind of had our summer sale. It could ironically be that those 2 months of 40% off have put us in a stronger position than having, stock at 30, 40, 50, 60 and 70% off over a shorter time period.
But if you can talk to, good loyal wholesale or credible wholesale accounts about some kind of markdown contribution during, to Joe's point, lockdown, or some kind of incentivization that helps people effectively stay alive at this time, because that's what you're really trying to do. We're all just trying to keep each other alive right now, and that's basically about partnership, incentivization, communication, and finding a solution. Really, Leon, it's worth saying that the big guys are doing okay at the moment. So if you're going to do anything as a brand, try and leverage your relationship with those to get support, i.e. better payment terms, or essentially trying to get those guys to help you as a small brand keep you afloat?
I think one of the biggest challenges is that Claire mentioned, I think a couple of people mentioned it actually. It's all very well focusing now on, the panic of, for people who've still got a lot of stock to sell through that's seasonal. What's going to happen for autumn winter? I've had one entire footwear delivery cancelled from Italy. I've had 75% of another footwear brand cancel on me. So, that is a massive proportion of my product offering that's just not there now. Will I be able to buy relevant stock from other suppliers at that time? How do I fill those gaps? Because I want to enter autumn winter, the season that's strongest for me, because let's face it, Great Britain does a bloody great winter every year. We have the weather for it, and the stock's not going to be available.
So difficult to plan, so difficult to forecast. Totally hear what Joe's saying. It's difficult for retailers too to be able to go like, how am I going to build a range?
Would it be a case of sort of standing back and saying, okay, well, we've had the orders cancelled on us, so while we have a situation to stand back and look at what realistically we need to do to reforecast and readjust our open to buy accordingly?
We'd had an outstanding season, so 2018. We increased our forward order on a basis of that because we didn't want to be short of stock. We then had a rubbish winter, didn't we, last year? It was quite warm to start with, then it was incredibly wet. We had Brexit, the general election, then we had all the storms, and then we had coronavirus. So every which way we could have been battered, we have done. So we've already bought really tightly for this winter already.
An answer, just buying a little bit more hand to mouth, exploring new brands, perhaps exploring new avenues that you wouldn't normally have explored before, and perhaps even new product areas. And I think that's the other thing that we've got to consider, is that brands have been sort of forged away in certain areas, but who knew that slippers would become an all year round business?
We launched our own brand of premium jersey basics in 2000, I think it was 14. Well, this has been the best opportunity.